Hi, you guys. How you doing? It's Orlando City UK here today, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by another special guest. You'll know her as the Orlando City beat writer from the Orlando Sentinel. It's Julia Poe. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
More than welcome. Really nice to talk to you. I've really been looking forward to getting you on. I mean, after the 2020 we've had so far with the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm pinching myself, if I'm honest, right now at just how much joy Orlando City's managed to give our community in these super unique circumstances. So, first of all, I mean, we know that you cover the team week in, week out. Before we really dive into our questions today, just tell us, when you've been writing the column inches in the last couple of weeks, it must be like commenting on a Hollywood movie, right?
I mean, it really is. It's one of those things where every week they give me, I mean, it's always fun to cover a team, but they're almost making it easy for me just in the sense that, every storyline that comes up, they're like completing it in the most Hollywood way they could possible. I mean, I got to the end of that LAFC game and we got into the last 5 minutes of it. I was like, they're going to equalize this. My whole story was written and I was like, they're going to equalize this. I see Joao go up and I was just like, gosh dang it, of course they would. So yeah, it's been very fun, especially when you're trying to cover a team in the middle of something like this. It's not fun to cover a season shutdown. There's not a lot to write about. I know that people were getting fed up with what we did have to write because basically every week it was just COVID. And so finally getting into something like this where we're actually talking about the football and it's good, like that's basically all you can ask for.
Definitely. I mean, it is dreamland right now. I'm honestly, like I said, I'm pinching myself at just how well this tournament's gone and fully deserved as well. Now, obviously, we know that Orlando City are going to be facing Portland Timbers in the MLS's back final on Tuesday. Just saying that is remarkable enough in itself. But today we're going to speak with Julia about how the Lions tournament has panned out so far, what it's like to work in the bubble. Really interested to ask you about that, and obviously your own soccer journey so far as well. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So I want to start simple, and it's all about your emotions and feelings. We've touched on it a little there, but don't hold back. Cast your mind back to 11:30 p.m. last Thursday. Orlando City's just defeated Adrian Heath's Minnesota United to reach the MLS's back final. Describe your emotions in that moment.
I mean, in that moment, I was just panicking because post-game, we have to pick all our stuff up and like sprint to a different area to do post-game interviews. And they don't know if we're like in the Zoom call or not. So they'll start without you. So post-game is never quite as fun for me right now because A, I was filing on deadline, and then B, like had to do that sprint. So I will say I was not surprised. There have been other finishes that I was surprised by just because of the situations. LAFC, obviously, that's the biggest one that comes to mind. But I thought looking at that Minnesota team and looking at what Oscar had been doing with the team, I wasn't really all that surprised. It was just one of those things where I think it just was another proof of what I had already kind of expected to see from them. So that was probably one of the least emotional ones at the end. I mean, as a beat writer, we're not invested in it the same way that you guys are as fans, obviously. So it's a little bit of a different feeling. But I was really happy for the guys. You work with them enough, you kind of get to know them a little bit as people. And I was genuinely really happy, especially for Benji, seeing him have that goal. It was really nice to see that and see how happy he was about that afterwards.
Yeah, awesome. Now, we obviously know that you're one of the first to get the inside track on the team week in, week out. This is a question I've asked all of our other guests so far this summer, but I want to put it to you as well, obviously because you cover it and you work inside the bubble. But do you think now we've seen 6 games pan out, obviously the finals to come, do you think Orlando City had some form of advantage getting acquainted to the bubble and the surroundings earlier than others? Or is it more to do with just the pure hard work and determination of Pereira?
I think the second part that you talked about is more of what it is. I think maybe early on, there is a little bit of an advantage when you kind of are a little bit more used to the humidity. That's no lie, that's no secret. But I really think that was only an edge in the first couple of weeks, because once you acclimate, like you're here. It's not quite the same thing as elevation. And I know Chris Mueller has said this often, like at a certain point, hot is just hot and you never get used to it. Like it's just brutal, and there's only so much that you can do. I will say that I think that different teams prepared differently during the shutdown. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we've seen from this tournament is that the teams that prepared the most intensely are the ones that had the legs to make it the furthest. And I will say that Orlando City definitely did. I mean, they came in with a chip on their shoulder. They were ready to go. They were having, I think, 3 meetings a week throughout the entire shutdown where they were just talking and going over strategy. And I remember, I think it was Tesho joked that like there were times where they're like, oh man, do we have to do this? Like, I don't want to do all these meetings, but they knew, even though they had that feeling, they knew it was going to pay off. And so I think this has more to do with how certain teams prepared. And I'm not slighting any other teams. I think it was really difficult to adapt to, but Orlando City came in, they had their game plan, and they attacked that season shutdown, probably one of the best of any teams in the league. So that's more of that competitive advantage. It doesn't have to do with knowing the humidity. It's just the way that you approach that time off really dictates whether or not you're going to be able to go and start running like 5 miles a game again right off the bat.
For sure, absolutely. You referenced Tesho there. It's funny because I was lucky enough a couple of weeks out before the tournament began. Tesho was on a Zoom call to season ticket holders, and I was lucky enough to jump on that. And he told us all that like Oscar's absolutely roasted us, and they were, like you say, having the 3 meetings a day, traded so hard. And I think this team is fully invested, and that's playing out on the pitch, which is fantastic to see. But I just want to take one moment to just jump away from the tournament. Obviously, we had some breaking news yesterday that the regular season resumption has now been announced. Do you have any information, Julia, on what the club's plan is for welcoming supporters back to Exploria Stadium?
Yeah, I mean, it's so I reported on this in my article on it yesterday. They have a plan. They've submitted it to the league. They're hoping to have fans in the stands. It will be a very reduced capacity. So it's not going to be what it normally would be. I don't have a lot of details about the plan because it's not set yet. So I've heard some different things, both here and just what folks around the league are doing. It's going to be distanced. It's going to be really, really different. And I think a large part of what Orlando City has always wanted to do from the beginning was gauge what fans want out of that experience to make sure that they're not just like creating a plan and not allowing like you guys to actually have an insight into what that looks like. But as far as, season ticket members, what this is going to mean for people like that, there's a lot of questions I think that I still have, and possibly that even the team still has. But I'm hoping that we're probably going to get answers for that in the next week. I mean, it's going to be a very quick process because I know everyone's focused on Tuesday, but the guys have 10 days to prepare, and then they're down in Lauderdale playing the next week. So it's going to be a very quick turnaround, and I know everyone's anxious about it, but there will be answers coming out, but very soon.
I suppose it's a case of keep your eyes peeled, and you said it there. I mean, obviously as fans and kind of what us bloggers do, we're always previewing the games, and like you said, you'll be busy, I'll be busy. There's hardly a gap, is there, at all, until the 22nd?
None at all. I saw that first date and I was like, oh, so we're not going to take it. Okay, we're not taking a break. We're just going.
I know, it's certainly full on right now. That's for sure. Sports-wise, Julia, I want to say, obviously the clubs you're close to. I know you're a massive Kansas City Chiefs fan in NFL. So it's been a big couple of years for you, obviously, with teams that you're close to, that you cover, and ones that you support. If any, just kind of an open question, but what comparisons, if any, are there between the Chiefs' run to the Super Bowl last year, which was in Florida, of course, and Orlando City's bid to win MLS's back? Is there anything, that you kind of can touch on?
This is actually kind of funny because I make this joke to my parents a lot because they're obviously the ones that made me the Chiefs fan that I am. But if you know anything about NFL, Tyrann Mathieu is a linebacker for the Chiefs, and he has this whole mantra of, linebackers kind of are generally stereotyped as not being super smart. They're just these very aggressive people. Yeah. Tyrann is super smart, deeply intelligent, very intellectual. He's leading a Get Out the Vote campaign in Kansas City right now. Great guy. And he has this whole thing where he's like, yeah, I'm tougher and stronger than everyone, but I'm mainly like smarter than everyone. And when he makes a sack or something, he doesn't flex. He comes out and he points at his head, and he like does this whole like get smart type thing. And I will say that that is very similar. I think the intellectualism of this team, and that's not true of all the Chiefs. I mean, like Travis Kelce is just a big goof, but but I will say that I have joked that a lot of the Orlando City guys have that intellectual edge. If you get to know any of them, they're all very intelligent, really smart. And so they have that extra edge of like, they're studying, they're reading books, they're watching a crazy amount of film. And that's fun. It makes it more fun to cover them too, because when you talk to them, they're not going to give you the, oh, I don't know, I like blacked out during that play thing.
Yeah.
They're going to walk you through it, and they're going to tell you like, yeah, I connected it to this and this, and this is our mantra. So that's not really a connection, but it is something that I say to my parents a lot, which I find funny that you brought up. But they're so different. I mean, football and American football are so different. So
for sure. No, it's definitely nice, like you say, when the guys, they have that that intelligence as well, that they're not giving you the straight blanket answers where, we played well, we're moving on to the next game, whatever. There's a bit more to it, which is good for you guys.
All the way down to the rookies. I mean, Daryl DK is, I feel like a lot of people don't know that he's still finishing up his classes at Virginia, which is a very good school.
Wow, really? He's
taking like finance classes while he's in the bubble. That's what he's working on during his downtime. I mean, these guys are, I'm not here to like hype the team up, but just as people to interact with, they're pretty impressive, guys, whether it's, veterans like Tesho all the way down to Daryl. It's just like, they've got that extra edge that I haven't covered a lot of other teams in the league, but it definitely does set them apart in that way.
That's new information to me. That's fantastic. Definitely. Now I want to move on, Julia, to the bubble itself. Now, this is our next segment. I have to ask you, because obviously we have our own perceptions from the outside, especially for our guys, in the UK, across the Atlantic. But obviously there's only so much personnel allowed on site. You're one of the people that is there. Walk us through your game day routine at Wide World of Sports. I'm really interested to find out.
Yeah, I mean, it's different because so the way that MLS does it is similar to NBA, where there's like people that get to go in and out. So I'm obviously like in my apartment here. I'm not actually at the hotel 24/7. So on game day, it's really different because we have to go through like temperature screens and everything to go in. But once you get there, I mean, it's not that different. We distance, we wear masks. We're not allowed to get there as early as I normally like to get to games. I'm normally there like 2 hours in advance, and we can only do 45 minutes, which is the biggest impact for me. But besides that, we're basically just in like a tent that's on the corner of the pitch. Like they picked the worst possible angle that you could get, and they said, this is good, and they put us there. And yeah, I mean, we're right down on the field. And I think that's the biggest difference, is just that, everything's outside. It kind of feels like you're covering a preseason game, or, it feels like you're covering a high school camp at Disney, basically. I mean, like everyone around the area knows about Wide World of Sports having all of their, big club team, tournaments and stuff like that. It feels like that, except that it's, Nani making that trap that he made the other day, like 10 yards away from you. So it's a very unique experience. I feel really lucky to be here because most of the big time soccer writers in the country, like they weren't going to risk it to come down here, or they came down and only stayed for a little bit. I've gotten to cover, I think, like close to 20 games by Tuesday there in this tournament. And that's been really special. I've never covered a 9 a.m. game, though. Thank God. I almost did, and my car on the way, and I was like, thank you, Jesus. I'll take a day in the dealership over sitting out there in 9 a.m. heat.
I've got to admit, even though some of the other teams, Atlanta, TFC, are making their excuses about the 9 a.m.s, I'm glad we haven't played one. Like, we know how brutal the heat can be in Florida, and
I know people wanted to snark, and I might get a little bit of crap for this because I know the feelings towards Atlanta. if y'all have stepped outside in Orlando at like, it's not at 9 a.m. It's at the end of the game at 11 a.m. when you're already tired.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's no way. If I were a player, I would have walked out and been like, I'll take the fine, I'm going home. And I would have packed my bags and just left. Like there's no way.
I mean, we know from holiday, and let alone running around for 90 minutes, how brutal it can be over there. So, yeah, I've certainly been watching on from home, and like I said, their shirts are absolutely ringing 5 minutes in, let alone the 90 minutes.
I saw a guy once wring his shirt out like you would do a towel, like, and it just dripped sweat off. I was like,
oh God, you did make me laugh the other day. Obviously, you say you've got your position under the tent right beside the pitch. You were the Hans Zimmer theme tune has been ringing in your head, hasn't it? Do they play it every game?
Okay, so every game for Walkout, they play it, and I was one of the people. I think it's a bop. Like I genuinely enjoyed them when I first heard it. But like I said, we're going on game, I think it's either game 19 or 20 on Tuesday. And when the guys come and do the walkout, they play it, but they do the walkout on the opposite side of the field, the speaker next to me. So it has to be loud enough to like fill this entire space for, I don't know what for, maybe for the broadcast. It's so loud, and it's just so many times.
You must know every beat in your head when you go to sleep at that. I
have a little dance to it that I didn't even realize I do, but I'm like sitting there like kind of jamming, but mostly just full fury over it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Hans Zimmer, I'm mad at you now. We have some words.
Somewhere in the middle. I was really interested. You touched on it earlier in this interview. So you say obviously once it hits the 90 minutes, the full time. So you guys have got a dash. You've got a hot foot it to to where the guys do the press conferences. I've been really interested because as a fan, I've tried to watch as many of those as possible. And when the guys are saying your line is open, have you got a question? Like, how does the process work for that? Is it a free for all for you guys, the media?
Sort of. So so all of it's on Zoom. So I'm not even going to where they are in person. I go to a different little tent, and then I log into a Zoom. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a boring detail, but we basically just, the little raise hand icon at the bottom of Zoom. Right. We just that, and then Jackie, who is in charge of comms for Orlando City, she goes through and just picks them based on everyone, and she makes sure to get to everyone. Kind of tries to give a little bit of a leg up to the folks locally who cover the team on a regular basis, but gets everyone in nationally as well. So yeah, it's not a free for all. Like Jackie has control of the mute button, so she gets to pick which of us goes and then lets us know. So yeah, it's a little bit awkward of a way to interview people, because basically we've been doing these Zoom calls with the guys for months now. Yeah. But it's one way. So they're not ever seeing us. So we've been looking at these guys for months, and they're just talking like a blank, I don't even know, like an empty room basically. So it's a very, very strange way. I'm really looking forward to that getting hopefully back to normal eventually.
That must be really strange for you, definitely. Talking of the site down there, obviously we've as fans, we've all gone wild seeing the team go crazy themselves in the locker rooms they've got done, and they look like shipping containers. Are they honestly that small? What is the setup done?
I have no idea. I mean, we have our one little area that we're able to walk to. We have our one entrance to our little tent, to our other little tent and back, and that's all we do. So I don't know what any of their stuff looks like, but yeah, I would guess so. I mean, it's basically just the facilities that they use for the high school kids and the other youth kids. It's not a fancy locker room, and they don't get to personalize it because they're rotating teams in and out of it. So yeah, it's different, that's for sure.
Super unique, no, definitely. Now, Julia, I want to move on to some more personal questions about you and kind of your journey so far. Really interested to know. Now, obviously, you've been in Florida. You've been working at the Sentinel from last year. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I came in. My first day was July 1st last year. So a little bit over a year now.
Yes. So does it feel like home first and foremost? And tell us, what is, obviously it's It's a challenging career. You know, you're on the ground reporting all the time. Tell us the biggest pro and the biggest challenge. There's a few questions there, but tell us kind of how the role came about to start with.
Yeah. So how the role came about, I graduated from USC last May. And before that, if you guys remember, Pro Soccer USA is like the national outlet that we had started. It's on hiatus right now due to the shutdown, but I had been the LAFC beat writer for that while I was in school. So I was covering LAFC for their first 2 seasons. And on my graduation day, Alicia, my editor, emailed me and was like, hey, we have a job opening. Would you be at all interested in moving to Florida possibly, like, or not even moving to Florida, but like, is this something that would be interesting to you? Like, would you like to interview for it? And I was like, yes, oh my God, yes, like, let's go.
Furiously typing back.
Yeah, I'm like trying to play it cool. And it was really funny. It was like, I was in my friend's room as we were getting ready to like grab, like my friends were curling their hair. I was in my like cap and gown, literally. It was nuts. So I came out, I started last year. That was crazy because it was July. July 1st was my first day. And the end of July was the All-Star game here in MLS, here in Orlando. So that was like the craziest month of my life. I had to learn how to be a traveling beat writer for 2 teams with All-Star coming at the end of it. It was nutso. But it was very fun. And now that I'm here for a year, I definitely feel at home here. Like, I love Orlando. I tell everyone I love my apartment. I'm never leaving this apartment. I'm raising my great-grandchildren here because I hate moving and I love this place. And I genuinely enjoy the city, the people, like, just both the teams are great to cover. So I'm very happy here. Like you said, so pros and cons. Cons is funny because I always feel like I never want to complain about my job because my job is amazing. Like, I love my job.
World, right? Sure.
Yeah, the best in the world. I think the only hard thing about it is that there's 2 things. One, none of my friends understand what I do. Most of my close friends are from my sorority in high school, or not in high school, sorry, in college. So they're from my sorority, or they're from like journalism, but they're not sports journalists. They're just like news reporters and stuff like that. So they do not understand anything about how my job works. They still follow me on Twitter. They don't understand. I tell them about it on FaceTime. They just don't get it. They like text me immediately after a game ends because they think that that's when I'll be free. And I'm like, this is my business time. Like, what are you doing? One time, one of my friends FaceTimed me in the middle of an interview with Adam Grinwis, and he took the phone from me and answered it. He like saw it in my hand and was like, oh, this person's, and like tried to like answer the face. I believe it was a FaceTime. Yeah. It's just, so yeah, they don't understand my job. So that's one con, is just having a weird job that none of your friends understand. And then, I mean, the time is crazy because you're like on all the time in season, and then off season, you're a little off. But the pros are everything. I mean, you get to travel. The people I work with are great. Athletes are really fun to work with, just as people, like really great, positive people to be around. A great editor, 2 great editors. So yeah, it's like all pros, and the only cons are that my friends are just constantly like, wait, what?
They're looking up for the anniversaries or the amount of time you've been there, like, yeah.
They're just, they have no idea what's going on. I have a few friends that just like all my tweets no matter what they're about, and I'm like, please, what is going on? Like, yeah, it's very funny.
I mean, it's the kind of the industry you work in, like, you know, it's got some comparisons with our guys, you know, as bloggers as well. Tell us, I mean, you must have had like countless stories like this in the year or so you've been there, but like, you're probably cooking dinner, you know, and then something breaks on the team, like Dwyer's injured for 4 months, or like, how do you balance that social and work life? Because you can't switch off, right?
No, I mean, when we're in season, so I haven't had like a full off day since the day the Pride withdrew.
Right.
So whenever that was,
Long time
I'm
ago.
taking 3 like completely unplugged days off next week, and I have never looked forward to off days before because, again, my job's amazing, but like I'm kind of looking forward to just
Oh, totally. Yeah.
phone, you know. But yeah, there's not really a great balance. Most of it comes from my editor yelling at me to like, she's like, go sleep, go take care of yourself, go read a book. She tells me that like on a weekly basis. She's like, okay, you're done for today. So that's helpful. But yeah, I mean, when we're in season, that balance is not great. That little bit where the Challenge Cup was going on at the same time as MLS is back, just it was just soccer all day. But it helps that I like what I do, and it helps that honestly during the pandemic it's been kind of good, because when I didn't have work I was like just in my apartment alone, like what am I doing? So now it's a little bit easier, and it helps that most of my friends aren't like my close longtime friends. They're from school back in LA, so they're not here. So it's a lot easier to have those like, hey, I have 20 minutes, I'm in the car, can I call you type things. So that's good, but I just have to be a little bit more purposeful with it, because if I'm not, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't understand how people have like wives and children during this.
I know, honestly, yeah, it's sports. I mean, me just being the blogger, like I'm crazy for it. You know, I've covered every game for 5 years, and it's so important, you know, because it is all consuming. That we're both passionate about what we do, but yeah, I totally get you. Like, really enjoy those days off, because you work so hard. I want to say, like, for me and a lot of people I know, I think you do an amazing job. Because since you replaced Jordan Culver, so we thank you for everything you do at the Sentinel, for sure.
I'm happy to do it. It's like I said, there's no complaints. I love it. And when I first came in, everyone was like, Orlando City fans, we're crazy. Like, get ready for us. Y'all are fine. Y'all are fine. Like, you're nice. No one is mean to me. People ask a lot of questions. So Pride fans get a little nutty sometimes, but like overall, everyone, y'all are great. Like, seriously, have been really very welcoming and very helpful to me.
Good to hear. We're really glad you're settled down there in Florida. Now, we're almost out of time, but I've got a couple more questions for you. Obviously, I know you were raised on NFL. We've touched on that already, but what was your earliest memory of soccer in the United States? I'm really interested because it's our sport, obviously, in the UK, but obviously soccer's more of a new thing in America. What was your earliest memory?
So my earliest memory, besides playing it, because I played it from a very young age, because that's kind of what you do in America. Like, you put your kids, when you live in the suburbs, you put your kids in soccer when they're like 4. But my first memory of like as a fan was after the US won one of their Olympic gold medals. My parents got me tickets to a Kansas City Wizards US women's national team doubleheader game at Arrowhead Stadium, back when they still played there. And I was dressed up in the cutest little like USA outfit. And I went to, like, the concept of a soccer doubleheader is insane. Like, I went to 2 soccer games back to back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I think it was, I think the US played first and then the Wizards played afterwards. This is back when they were the Wizards. And that's my first memory. And that was amazing, because it was at Arrowhead, which is huge for Chiefs fans, and it was a great game. Got to see Mia Hamm play. Like, it was,
yeah, it
was fantastic. So that's definitely my earliest memory.
Good stuff. All right, so before I leave you, Julia, we have to ask you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We have to ask you the main question: a final for Orlando City. I mean, how incredible is that against Portland Timbers? Does this wonderful city get its first MLS title? Can I push you for a score prediction?
We don't do score predictions. It's like one of our policy things. I will say, since I'm not going to give you that, I will say I think they have it in their capacity to win. I think that is probably one of the biggest tone shifts from last season to this season, is that I don't think that there's a team in the league besides maybe LAFC with Carlos Vela, because it's just unfair. But I don't think that there's any team in the league that this team can't hang with. Like, if they're in the right situation. Now, injuries, exhaustion, game plans, whatever. But I do think that they can hang with every single team. And I think Tuesday, like, it's theirs to win, it's theirs to lose, in my personal opinion. So not trying to be too high on them. a lot of national writers that I'm friends with like teased me about being a homer when I came into the season. They were like, "Oh, you've gotten too close to the team." I'm like, "No, like just wait." And I feel very like vindicated for that now.
Awesome. Well, we certainly hope you're right in that final chapter in this Cinderella story, obviously in Magic Kingdom, just across the way. We're really looking forward to it. We're super pumped here at Orlando City UK. Like we say, we hope you get to put the final touch on this amazing story. But that's almost our time up for today. So I want to say a big thank you to Julia for joining us. Like we said, I think you do an amazing job at the Sentinel. Long may that continue. I'm glad to hear you're so settled in Florida. Now, as for Portland Timbers versus Orlando City, so it all gets underway just after 1:30 a.m. in the UK in the early hours of Wednesday morning. If you're in the States, of course, it's just after 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday. We wish the team the very best of luck. It's our biggest club game yet, and the city is behind every single one of them. So until next time, thanks, Julia. Vamos Orlando. Thanks.